Alright, so hello and welcome back to the continued coverage of the walkthrough series. And in this episode, we are looking at 9618 variant 43 of October, November 2023, and we will be doing the Python implementation for question 1 of this paper. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at what we have here. So we are given a function written in pseudocode, entirely in pseudocode. And essentially, this function is called iterative vowels, and basically it's going to take a string as an argument, then run through the string trying to locate vowels, that is A, E, I, O, U, and then in the end, it's simply going to return the total number of vowels inside of that particular string, is it? Then of course, here they are just mentioning that it's using mid, length, from the P2 insert, right? But of course, in this case, you're supposed to be using something from our language, specifically from PHP. Python, not PHP, from Python, because we are doing the Python implementation right here. So let's go ahead and look at the implementation that I have going on. So here is my implementation for iterative vowels, and you see that we have the function definition right here, right? So one thing that I need to mention is that in Python, you realize that for the most part you have to comment out a lot of things, because Python is loosely typed, as it were, is it? Because, for instance, there's no parameter declaration inside of the parentheses right here. I could actually erase this and it would still work, is it? And it would still be fine. But what I did in this case was to use the PEP8 notation, right? Essentially, it's just going to allow me to give a parameter called value, then also mention what type of parameter is going to be expected in this. So this essentially makes it easier now for you, so that in the case that you won't have to comment out every line of code, as it were. So if you were, let's say if this was going to return a boolean, right, you would just actually just use bool. Then if you expected it to take a boolean, you indicate bool like that. If you expected it to return to take in an integer, you put int like so. And if you expected it to take a string, like in this case, you'd use string. Then also, if you expected it to take a float, you can just use the float class, right? Is it? So in our case, value is going to be a string, because that's what they want here. If you look in the pseudocode, then for the return type, that is what the function is going to return. You just put that hyphen and angled bracket, right angled bracket, and put the keyword, rather the type, as it were, that you would expect that you want the function to return. So this is going to save you a lot of commenting out. So you actually see me using this notation throughout my solutions for Python going forwards. All right, so next up, we are initializing total to 0. Then we are taking the length of the string. That's according to the pseudocode right there, right? And then we are going to begin a for loop that's going to simply have an if statement within it. Rather, it's first going to slice a string, then check to see if the sliced string contains any vowels. Then if there are any vowels, we're just going to increment total by 1. Then after checking that condition, we slice and move on to the next word. Or rather, we slice off the first character and have the rest of the words as the new value. Then we go back and keep doing that until we have a final total for the vowels. So you see that we're actually doing that right there. So I'm using an unnamed variable right there on line number 9, right? I would have just used x, but in this case, I just chose to use an unnamed variable because it's a throwaway variable. I don't need to give it a name. So it's using an unnamed variable, and then an unnamed variable in Python is just an underscore. And for the most part, you're going to be using it with loops, like in my case right here. Then we are simply checking to see if it is in the length of the string. That is to say, if basically the loop is just going to run for however long the string that was passed in as an argument is. Then on line number 10, we are taking the character on the first index position, that is on index position 0. Then we are checking to see if the character is any one of these. Then if that's the case, then we are simply going to increment total by 1. And then of course we are going to slice the string right there on line 14. Then of course we return total, is it? So this is going to iteratively do this slicing one letter of the word. Like for instance, if you look at this line number 5 that I've going on there, on the first run it would remove the L, then on the second run it would remove the O, and so forth and so on, is it? All right, so having done that, you can go ahead and copy the code and paste it inside of the evidence document. Then moving on to part B, another item number 2, we need to call iterative vowels with the parameter house from the main program, right? So your main program in your Python script, it should always be the last function that you define, because Python is interpreted. So if you were to call, rather to declare main at the top, at the very top right there, then declare iterative vowels after main, and then you try to call iterative vowels inside of main, you would actually get an error, because Python is going to interpret every line before it gets to main. So it's always a good idea, rather it is standard practice to have the main method as the last function inside of what of your Python script, as it were. So our main method is right here. I keep calling it main method because the functions are called methods in Java, and for the most part I am a Java programmer more than Python. So sorry about my keeping. All right, never mind. So what we are doing here now is we are calling iterative vowels with the house parameter, right? So basically we're just going to output the vowels in house, then we output the number right there, because remember iterative vowels simply returns what? A number, as it were. So for the item 3, we need to take a screenshot of the output. So I'm just gonna click on the play button right here, and it's going to take a minute to do its thing. Then there we go. So this is the output. So this is the vowel count for the word house. Then of course we take a screenshot of this and paste it inside of the evidence document. Then moving on to part B, we need to implement iterative vowels, but this time around we need to implement it recursively. So you need to remember this about recursive functions, that there are two parts to a recursive solution. So the first part is the base case, right? So the base case is essentially the exit condition. So you want to exit until a certain condition has been met, and here we want to simply exit if there's nothing inside of value, is it? So if there's nothing inside of value, you simply want to return 0. Then we also need, the second thing that we also need for recursive solutions is to have a way to work towards the base case, or to work towards the exit, as it were. So in this case, we are going to slice the first character and check to see if it is inside of a E, I, O, U. Then if it is, then we are going to increment count by 1. Otherwise, we are simply going to leave count at 0, is it? So this notation that I have going on line 3, it's actually a compressed if else clause, as it were. So let me just explain how it works. So the condition that we are testing is right here, the highlighted part right there. So first character in A, E, I, O, U, that's the condition that we are testing, is it? So if it is true, we are going to assign count a value of 1. Then if it is false, we are going to assign count a value of 0, is it? So that is how that works. It's actually called the ternary operator, because it takes 3 what do you call them, operators, as it were, or it has 3 conditions or 3 inputs, as it were. So the first input is what we want to happen if it is true. Then the middle input is basically what we want to test, and the rightmost input is basically what we want to happen should the condition return a false, is it? So this is what we're just doing on line 23 there. Then moving on to, of course, you'd go ahead and copy this code and paste it inside of the evidence document. Then maybe just to point out on line number 24, that is where we are making this recursive call to recursive vowels. So essentially, it's simply going to take the value of count plus whatever recursive vowels is going to return on the next run, is it? So basically, recursion for the most part utilizes the stack, the core stack, is it? And it's going to unwind the function, as it were, and then backtrack, returning a value ultimately. So you go ahead and copy this code and paste it inside of the evidence document. Then for B item 2, we simply need to run the program and take a screenshot of the output. So let's go ahead and click on the play button. So Did I do that? I think I skipped a step. We need to call it from main right there on line 34. So we are calling recursive vowels from main, passing imagine as an argument to the function as it were. Then when we run it, we should get that there are how many vowels inside of what of the word imagine. So we have 4 vowels inside of imagine. Then of course you'd go ahead and copy, take a screenshot of this code and paste it inside of the evidence document. Moving on to, yeah, I think that's the end of it. So that brings us to the end of question number 1. I'll see you in the solution for question number 2.